From the Studio 13 Studios in Splendora, Texas, Hank's Think Tank is brought to you by the following sponsors.
Quiet on set. Picture is up. All right, roll sound.
Rolling.
Roll cameras.
Cams rolling.
And 3, 2.
Hey everybody, what's going on? And welcome to Hank's Think Tank. It is getting really close to Thanksgiving, so I hope everybody has a great Thanksgiving. It's a good time to come together, family, friends, food, fun, entertainment, and the beginning of the holiday season. Today I have with me Christian Collins. And if you don't know this guy yet, you should. That means you've been living under a rock. Christian is a very popular person. He's done a lot in Montgomery County, including running for Congress in the past, and we're going to get into all that in a little bit. But first, I wanted to welcome you aboard. Welcome aboard, Christian. How's it going?
Well, Hank, thank you so much for having me on. It's an honor to be with you. Thank you for your involvement in the community. It's important and needed, and it's just great to be on your show today.
Great. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm glad we could finally work it out and get it all together. So, Christian, I wanted to talk a little bit to start out with about the biggest thing that I think you've got going, which is the Texas Youth Summit. How?
Yeah.
I mean, how'd you come up with the idea? How did it all begin?
Yeah.
I've seen some of the videos, and you have packed houses.
Yeah.
How?
Well, 5 years ago, we started Texas Youth Summit in 2019, and it's just grown every year since. And sheer persistence. Of course, I believe it's the favor of God. People always ask me, how do you bring all these speakers and recruit all these students? And just persistence. I meet people everywhere. I have a pretty vast network, and through connecting with people, I figure out ways to mobilize them and organize them. And as a conservative activist, one of my strengths is organizing, and so through that effort, God uses that, I think, for a purpose much bigger than me. It's for Him. It's for His glory, but also to save our country. And in my small part of that is, I want to work with youth throughout Texas and make a difference in that arena. For a long time, I've taught at Lone Star College, so I've been working with youth that way. I've been involved, starting college ministries, and through that effort, it was just solely religious. But through that effort, it was combining my full-time work in politics and bringing those together. Education, ministry, politics. That's what Texas Youth Summit is, and there's a lot more I can say about that, but it's sincere, and God's in it, and He gets the glory for it.
How can you go wrong with all that?
Yeah.
So what do you teach at Lone Star?
I teach speech, so public speaking, and the way that I teach my public speaking course is kind of like a merger of John Maxwell, Dale Carnegie, and Tony Robbins. I try to make it really, really inspirational.
That's great. Yeah, that's
fun.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I can see how those three powers kind of would balance out and make a great speaker.
Well,
yeah, I hadn't thought about that.
Well,
before.
I mean, they can talk about all kinds of things in these classes. I went through Lone Star College myself for 2 years before I ended up transferring to the University of Texas. And so the way that we teach the course, I have them, give a motivational speech. So they listen to big time, speeches, like college commencement speech from maybe Steve Jobs or some of the big thinkers. They listen to, to Joe Rogan, Elon Musk, and some of the big power players in the world. They listen to some of these eloquent people that inspire them, and then they give a motivational speech. They have to do their 5-year plan, their life plan, on their finances, their health, their bucket list, where they want to travel in the world, their just all the different areas of life. What do you want out of your life is the question I'm asking of them. And then they have to give a vision casting speech, and then they have to give a health speech, and they talk about different areas of health, and it ends up being a great course for them because it's not just a public speaking course, but it's also like personal development, and they really enjoy it. So they're always full. So
that's awesome.
I have some of the Texas Youth Summit folks that actually found me that I was teaching this course in person this year, so Friday mornings I teach at Lone Star College, and then they took the course just because they knew I'd be there, but mostly I teach online.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how did you come up with Texas Youth Summit, though? I mean, you just woke up one day and said, God's talking to me.
Yeah. Well, I knew I wanted to make a difference in terms of bringing in influencers and speakers. I had a lot of background going to Liberty University, and they'd have a convocation every 3 days, and they'd bring in these big-time speakers. I remember in 2012 they brought in Donald Trump. And
really?
Yeah. And back then, he had an entourage of women around him.
It was a younger man.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And he had an entourage of Miss, Universe, Miss USA pageant winners. And,
right.
But I'll never forget, they'd bring in the biggest political people, and then they would bring in the biggest religious people, so they brought in Jensen Franklin. And I remember Jensen Franklin praying for me. And that was just such an important moment in my journey. And, bringing in all these influencers together, but they'd space them out, throughout the week. And, I just thought that was so cool. That was like the highlight of going to Liberty University. I went there for my master's, and I also got another degree there later in Christian ministry. So 2 master's degrees from Liberty. So they've gotten my money, but I really enjoyed that experience. And so just starting something, and it's been great getting to do this here in my home in Montgomery County. And the Woodlands isn't even a city, and you see big conferences going around the country, like in Phoenix or in West Palm Beach or in Washington D.C. But we're bringing this right here, to Montgomery County, and it's really beautiful that we get to do that.
That's awesome. Yeah, the Youth Summit is a great deal. I mean, it's just good. So, and that's been going on since 2019, right?
Yes, sir. And it's grown every year incrementally. Wow. And
what's the average attendance? Do you know?
Our largest attendance we've had is 2,000, and
wow.
And we've had just every year in terms of speakers, in terms of venue, we just continue to grow, and vendors and people that want to participate in what we're doing. And I believe this year it'll be a huge step up with the audio visual, which has been my big goal. You can probably appreciate that type of work in the production space. So.
Yeah, it can be a challenge, that's for sure.
Yes.
And so the main message with the Youth Summit is Christian Judeo principles, along with just good citizenry.
Freedom.
Correct?
Yeah, freedom, limited government, fiscal responsibility.
All the things that
American
should be teaching
exceptionalism,
in school.
Right? American exceptionalism and Judeo-Christian values.
That's it.
And
that's good.
We pull, different kinds of students. Homeschool. We have a huge contingency of homeschoolers. Private Christian schools. We've had a lot of folks from the Woodlands Christian Academy come here in Montgomery County. And Julie Ambler's a great woman and a friend. And you have, we pulled from Covenant Christian School and John Cooper School, and also Curtis Knoll and Conroe ISD. He was at our prayer breakfast that I hold every year in May of this past year, and some good public school folks that were a part of it. But we're pulling from places all around the state, and we've had people come from California and Florida and Canada. So I mean,
awesome.
People want to be a part of this because we're bringing in the biggest speakers in the movement, and it's continually doing that, and it's a great effort. So. And of course, we want high schoolers. We have. I mean, this is an area where there's a lot of high schoolers, but people from Rice, U of H, and Texas A&M, and Sam Houston, and St. Thomas. They're all coming to be a part of this.
So, is this a multi-day event, or is it just a single day, or how does it usually come out?
Multi-day, Friday and Saturday.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. I'm going to have to attend the next one.
I want you to. That'd be awesome.
That would be great. That
would be awesome.
I don't know if I'd want to speak or not, but it sure would be great.
Yeah.
So at one point you were an aide to Ted Cruz. How did all that come about?
Yeah. My dad has always been so interested in politics. He is a pastor growing up, and so we'd talk about politics around the dinner table. And, he actually was very much in favor of ousting Bill Clinton amidst his scandal in 1997. I just remember running around and telling people at a younger age, well, we need to impeach Bill Clinton, you know.
Yeah.
My dad's always had a big influence on me, though. He's just a godly man and one of my closest friends, and he is my closest friend, actually. And, you know, that experience, you know, just having such a great dad who I sort of like reverse vicariously lived through. I mean, he liked UT, so I ended up going to UT. He suggested Liberty. I ended up going to Liberty and working there and for grad school. And you know, and he told me about Ted Cruz while I was at Liberty University. So I was there around 11 and 12, and actually it was 12 and 13. And he told me about this new guy named Ted Cruz who was just, you know, shaking things up and taking the world by storm. And so I was like, well, I got to meet that guy. And so when I finished grad school, I came back and I would just go to events where Ted Cruz was because I was just fascinated with this guy that was going to Washington and making D.C. listen. You know, he'd go there and, you know, spit fire, and he'd shut down the government because the people in Washington, both parties, weren't doing what they were supposed to do. And he was very concerned with the national debt. He was concerned with having a fiscally conscious government that actually recognized that, you know, you can't spend more than you make, you know. And we were going to go off a fiscal cliff if we were going to keep going down this path. And so since then it's gotten a lot worse. But Ted Cruz, I recognized really quickly, was one of the good guys. And so I volunteered at a Republican event, and this very nice guy that I was volunteering with introduced me to people in the room. And so he got me in contact with the guy that worked for Senator Cruz. Well, that guy that worked for Senator Cruz got me a job with Greg Abbott. I did that for a year, but stayed in touch with that guy and wrote him a handwritten thank you note for getting me that job. And, you know, I didn't have a lot of money at the time, but gave him a $50 steak gift card. And
cool. There you go.
Yeah. And so anyway, long story short, it's just networking and found my way on. I can say a lot more good things about Ted Cruz, but the highlight was getting to travel with Ted Cruz's father, Raphael. And I don't think there's anybody that shaped my view on politics and the importance of having, you know, the right worldview, merging Christianity and politics and recognizing that if you are a Christian, you can't sit on the sidelines. You have to be politically engaged. And I traveled hundreds of hours with Raphael around the country, and he's one of my closest friends to this day.
Wow. What a great story.
Yeah.
You know, you had mentioned that you used to sit around the table, you know, the dinner table with your folks and discuss politics. Was that something that happened on a pretty regular basis?
Yeah. And to this day, me and my dad, you know, we talk almost every day, and we still do that, religion and politics.
That's really interesting. My parents were both from Holland, and they immigrated here in the 40s, so right after the end of World War II. They were both in Holland during the German occupation.
Wow. Things
were pretty bad for both of them. My dad at one point had gotten captured by the Germans, and he was in Auschwitz, but we're not Jewish, so Dutch. But there was a part of Auschwitz where they used men for slave labor, and my dad was in that deal. And so I'm getting somewhere with the story. So they come to America and working very hard on getting their citizenships. Well, when I was born back in 1962, my parents had just gotten their United States citizenships, and the topic of conversation at our table was American patriotism and how great of a country we live in. And I mean, this was talked about every meal, you know, about how I had all the chances in the world that none of their family members ever had, how I could be whatever I wanted to be, just freedom and greatness, and how the whole world looks at America because we're the shining light of the entire globe. And I mean, these were things that were drilled into me from when I was a toddler. Wow. You know, so that's how I grew up. So I can understand having those conversations with your dad and what it meant to you, because my parents were basically the same way. They didn't know a lot about the inner workings of American politics. They just knew that this was a damn great country, and it was the only place in the world that they wanted to go to seek refuge from all the things that had happened to them during the war, you know?
Yeah.
And my dad was a welder. I mean, he was a blue collar guy. He didn't make a whole lot of money his whole life,
Right.
but they loved it here. I
Yeah.
mean, they freaking loved it here. Like nothing else I've ever seen in my life,
Right.
and that lasted until they both took their last breath.
Wow.
And, so
What a great legacy, Hank.
yeah, I mean, it kind of is,
Yeah.
and I'm a first generation American, I guess you could say, because I was born here, but
You're proud to be an American.
yeah, I'm proud to be an American, and I think I have a different overall view of how great this country really is, because not only do I grow up with the stories of how great we are, but I also grew up with the stories of how people lived in Europe back then,
Right.
and the oppression that was going on and the lack of freedom, and just so much was happening during that time that was just awful,
Right. Right.
and so it gives you a different worldview, and I get disturbed when I hear people say we need to have a civil war in this country. I'm like, no, we don't. You don't understand what you're talking about, because if we have a civil war, it's not like you're going to go out and fight and then go home at night and sleep in your comfortable bed with your AC watching TV. It doesn't work like that. As soon as that civil war kicks off, things are going to get rotten really fast. And I don't think a lot of people understand that. I think that those remarks are just fleeting remarks of people who truly don't have a good grasp on how to properly put things in perspective enough to be able to repair them. I think guys like you can make those repairs.
Yeah. Yeah. The only way that our country can come together, I think, is if we do what 2 Chronicles 7:14 says, and humble ourselves and pray, repent, and seek God's face. And
There you go.
with that type of humility and that coming togetherness, I think we can be a whole country again. I haven't seen any type of camaraderie and union since 9/11. I remember where I was during September 11th.
Where were you?
I was in middle school, and
You were in middle school?
And as
Oh my God.
yeah.
How old are you?
I'm 35. Yeah.
Oh, you're just a toddler.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And as those
Wow.
as those buildings were coming down,
Mm-hmm.
I'll never forget how scared the teacher was and
Mm-hmm.
how concerned we all were, and we didn't know if we're going to have a war in this country.
That's what I thought. We were at war right then and there. I
Right.
said, oh man, we're at war.
Right, right. But the one good thing that I remembered that came of that, if anything, was I just remember all of the legislators in Washington on the Capitol praying together.
Yeah.
And it truly brought the Republicans and the Democrats together, and we had unity in our country for the first time that I can
Nice.
remember.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so let's shift gears a little bit. So you ran for Congress.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
So who'd you run against?
Well, there was 10 other people
Okay.
that ran for that seat as well,
Mhm.
and it was a great experience, one of the best experiences of my life,
That
riveting.
was 2020, right?
2022.
2022.
Yeah.
Okay.
So last
Wow.
cycle, yeah, and learned a lot. And
Oh, I'll bet.
if I had to do it all over again, I would. So
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm more equipped and better positioned to go forward in life and take these experiences and use them for whatever I decide to do next.
Mm-hmm. Do you think you'll run again?
I sure hope so. One day I would like to run for something, but ultimately I want to submit to God's will. So if it means doing something totally different, then I'm open to that too. I just want to be, in God's will. That's the easiest way that I can put it. And but getting to run for that, to represent so many great people of Montgomery County and Harris County and there were other counties as well, was an honor. And getting to meet so many great people was special, and it was fun. It was really fun, and of course you're doing something much bigger than yourself. It's running for office. It's a blood sport. It is. But the purpose behind it, and with the right heart, you can say the right things, but and you can do the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
But you need to do the right thing for the right reasons,
Right.
and that's constantly, I think, the battle, is to make sure that it's always about the people, because a lot of politicians, I've talked to a lot of them. I've worked with them in the past, and I've met a lot of politicians, and sometimes it just doesn't seem like, everyone is always in it for the right reasons,
I think maybe they start out that way, but it just ends up wrong for some reason.
Well,
it's too bad.
Their number one goal is always reelection, and so over the course of time, you'll do and make compromises to stay in power.
Sure.
And take money from people and become obligated to people that maybe you shouldn't be. And so that's why I think it's important, to know what you believe and why you believe it, and do things for the right reasons. And I've always sought to do that. It was just getting to run for office was really special. So, yeah.
I bet it was. I've got real respect for anybody who runs for office, because I think it takes a lot to stick your neck out and put your life on the line like that, because you're up for scrutiny from anybody, anywhere, anytime. So, I mean, there's a lot to it.
You learn a lot about human nature. There are people that say, well, I'll support you. And then they don't. It depends on.
I experienced that myself.
Yeah, it depends on who they're in business with, or how it benefits them. It's very nuanced. I mean, there are people, but you appreciate all the more the people that were with you, and that stood by you and helped you and supported you, because those are the people you want to go to battle with. And it means so much to have the support of so many great people. You learn a lot about yourself and the fortitude that you think you have going into it, because you think that you can conquer the world. And a lot of politicians think that they're just, the next president, right? But getting attacked and how you handle those attacks, and going to event to event to event, and the fatigue that you feel day in and day
tiring.
out, and constantly trying to figure out how you can make inroads and make gains, it's hard to turn off. And so it takes endurance, and it takes having the right mindset to not crumble under the pressure.
Sure, I agree. So what's in the future for Christian Collins?
Well,
got any big plans for the immediate future? Anything we don't know about that you want to break right here on Hank's Think Tank?
Well, I know for sure we're going to have another Texas Youth Summit this upcoming year.
Okay.
I know for sure I'm going to do another prayer breakfast, and it's going to be awesome.
Okay.
So that's going to be things that I continue to do. That being said, I just want to continue to be a staple in the community and involved and help people and support people where I can. And that's what ultimately being a public servant is all about, is about serving the needs of people. I don't have anything super new or exciting yet, but you'll be the first to know once I know.
Okay. Yeah. There's always something on the horizon, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So if somebody wants to reach out to you, what's the best way to do it? I know you have a website and all that, so let's cover all that stuff so our viewers will know exactly where to go to learn a little bit more about the Youth Summit and about Christian Collins.
Well, thank you so much for asking. ChristianCollins.org if you want to reach out to me personally.
Okay.
That website, ChristianCollins.org, is, you can contact us and send us an email. And if you want to reach out to the Texas Youth Summit, if you have a kid, or if you are a student yourself, or a young adult up to 26, ages 12 to 26 can get in free in this summit, and adults can come to the summit and buy a ticket and support our mission and be a part of what we're doing. It's really an awesome experience, and so we need people that can advocate for what we're doing, that can share this opportunity with others and get people involved. And, through that effort, we're going to be, continuing to grow this thing and, make it special. And every year it's a lot of work, but it's well worth it. And so we need the support of the community. We need Hank, and we need
Absolutely. I'm going next time.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And we need, your listeners, and we need help and involvement, and Republican women and all great people who want to be a part. So
absolutely. Any other methods by which they can contact you?
Well, I'm on social media.
Okay.
That's a great way. So you can reach out to me on Twitter,
Okay.
Collins4TX, or Instagram or Facebook,
Okay.
Christian Collins TX. But aside from that, you can send me an email, christian@christiancollins.org.
Great.
And I just want to stay connected to people, and if there are events that I can come and be a part of and support to the best of my ability, I'll be there, schedule permitting.
And you also do speaking engagements as well.
Yes, sir.
So if somebody's looking for a great speaker, here's a guy, he teaches it. So, yeah, it's
Well,
the way to go.
some of the things that I've talked about in various groups this year is talking about exposing the Chinese Communist Party's attacks on America, talk about our southern border and securing our southern border and all of the things that surround that, from fentanyl to human trafficking and all the problems that ensue in our country. And I'm also speaking at churches. So next, in a week from now, I'll be on the southern border doing a tour, but I'll also speak at an awesome Assemblies of God church down there on a Sunday. And, of course, my dad's a minister, and I have a ministry.
Do you cover scripture when you do those speeches?
Oh, absolutely. It's
Cool.
more of a sermon than a political
like it.
talk, but
Yeah.
I can't help but incorporate some politics there. So
That's great.
just all of those things right up my alley. So
Fantastic. All right. Well, there you have it, guys. Christian Collins. I hope that you learned a little bit about the gentleman. I know I did. I learned something every time I do one of these things. I'm Hank Batt. This is Hank's Think Tank, and we'll be gone.